Hey, welcome to another episode of Legion Elite Motorsports. I'm your host, Isaiah. And today, since I owe you guys an episode, I'm going to show you guys a couple hints and tricks pertaining to internal and external wastegates. So if you're wondering how to get more out of your turbo, this episode's for you. So let's dive in. And here is the internal wastegate. So as you see, there is a vacuum line that goes to it the same way the external one does. And if you look here, you can see the diaphragm is right where, if I can get my hand in there, right where this sandwich piece is. So when you add vacuum, it pulls the arm back, which is this way, to hold it shut and to hold the boost. And then when you reach a certain PSI, it pushes the arm back to open it and keep it at that PSI. So a lot of people don't know that these are adjustable, but if your Starion is, original, 30 plus years old with an original turbo, that arm right there might be a little seized and you may not be able to get it to adjust. But as you can see, there's a lock nut here, and that is to adjust and tighten or loosen the internal wastegate so you can increase your boost level. So on this one, we have the wastegate tight, so it takes more PSI to open the gate, or actually to push it the opposite way, which is towards the exhaust. And that is the basic function. So because it's threaded, it makes it fully adjustable. Plus, after you adjust it, you can take and add more adjustment to it by adding a boost controller, which the way I always connect these is instead of venting to atmosphere to act like a boost leak, which these cars don't like, you just cut the amount of air going to the wastegate and it allows you to boost the car up. So this one has a boost controller here. So righty tighty lefty loosey, and basically what it is a ball valve that actually interrupts the flow to the wastegate. Very simple, very cheap and inexpensive, and an easy way to control your boost manually. And an electronic controller does the exact same thing, except electronically. So instead of you twisting a knob, it has a little motor inside that actually opens and closes depending on what you set it to. I am kind of keen to the manual style because you kind of set it and forget it. With the electronic, you got to work with values and cross your fingers, hope that you got it right, kind of a thing. Because if not, it'll fluctuate. It'll go to the desired boost level, and then with a gain, it'll go above it or below it. So makes it a little bit different, but definitely lots of options when it pertains to boost controlling. So yeah, I think we'll leave it from there. Okay, so here we have the inner workings of an external wastegate. So I'm gonna tell you what the point of this is and kind of take it from there before we talk about the internals. So let's just imagine for a second that this thing is completely put together with its V-band clamp. Okay, so its duty is to regulate boost. Okay, this is a 38 millimeter wastegate, which means that this area down here is the equivalent of 38 millimeters. And that's the evacuating air volume that you can do with this size wastegate. So it's always kind of better to have an external wastegate because If you're in a, you know, drag setup or something like that, you can choose different sizes to regulate the boost better so you don't have boost fluctuation and boost peak. So that's always good to kind of have that open as an option. So if you select, for instance, you know, 10 pounds of boost, it's gonna hold exactly 10 pounds of boost. So fluctuation will happen when this is too small and it's not evacuating enough air. So you'll have moments where the boost will peak near higher RPM. So let's say you have 20 pounds of boost from 3,000 RPM all the way to 4,000 RPM. But then when you get to 4,500, it goes from 20 to 24 pounds of boost, making it realistic for, let's say, 22 pounds of boost to redline at 6,000. So in order to combat that boost spike, you want to go with a bigger wastegate. So this one is a 44 millimeter. It's not tight. So the hole is the equivalent of 44. So you see that there. You can barely fit 2 fingers in here, but this one you can fit 2 fingers in. So this allows you to regulate and control your boost in those instances a lot better. Now, of course, they have bigger ones than this, and that's usually used for if you're going up in the 40 to 50 pound area. You might want to like maybe a 50 or 60 pound, or not pound, but 60 millimeter wastegate, which is a little bit, what is it, like 2 3/4? It's really big. But you are basically using it based on your power level that you're going to be doing. So, and this is my demonstration manifold for the Starion, so it's not, you know, too big of a deal to take a look at this one. But, yeah, so make sure when you choose your wastegate, you choose properly. Now, there's a feature that I noticed that these wastegates don't have, but the 38 millimeters do have, and the action happens on the top hat. So normally when you are controlling your boost, you have a spring. This is a 7-pound spring. So once you reach 7 pounds of boost, the wastegate opens, so on and so forth. But what a lot of people do is they change the spring out for a higher pressure spring, right? What I like about this one is it has an adjuster screw up top. We're just gonna take this off for a second. And what you can do is compress the spring more than normal to get an increased boost level. So for instance, let's say this is opening at the 7 pounds of boost. Look at the bottom, see that there? Now, we can take and compress the spring, because it has this plate on top, right here. See, that holds the springs and any additional spring that you get. So basically, you're able to compress the spring a lot more, like that, and it allows you to boost a whole lot more. So, of course, just like boost controller, there's no level by twisting the knob. You count the twist yourself and see where it takes you, but usually what I do is I go by height of the screw. So, for instance, let's say it's a full inch up, right? I would go half an inch, see where the boost is at, then bring it to its lowest setting, and then you work your vacuum. So for instance, let's say you go from 1 inch to half an inch, and it takes you from 7 pounds to 12 pounds, right? Then you take it all the way down to its minimum. That's gonna increase your turbo reaction because the gate is pressed closed even harder, right? you can actually increase the time it takes to bring the turbo online, especially if the gate is partially open or anything like that. If it hits 7 pounds of boost real quick, you'll change that whole setup. So what I do is exactly that. I bring it down from 1 inch to 1/2 inch. Check, we got 12. Then I bring it all the way to the minimum setting, which is as low as this bolt, like that. And then you lock it down, and then you work your boost or your vacuum. So your vacuum has 2 options on most wastegates. You got the bottom, then you got the top. Okay, so let's say we got the 12 pounds of boost by hooking up just the bottom, and then the top is vented to atmosphere. The bottom, if you look at where the diaphragm is, which it lays right here, right? Putting boost pressure at the bottom of the gate actually allows you to lower your boost, because as soon as the boost comes up, it pushes the diaphragm up and in turn lifts the valve open. So that'll bring you lower boost. So if you want higher boost, just switching the pressure to the top will allow you to increase your boost. And then from there, you can use your manual or electric boost controller. So that's, you know, kind of the options I like. And as you can see, it's on every external wastegate. Now, if you get an aftermarket internal wastegate, they do have this option. So you might want to keep track of that. And depending on what you're trying to do, you can hook up your boost accordingly. So, yes, I think that kind of concludes external wastegate. So now we're going to talk about the internals. So with wastegates, especially external, is going to vary depending on brand, type, and so on and so forth. This one just happens to be a V-band connection for quick disconnect and changing out your spring. Makes it simple than having to take loose all of these screws and then putting it in a vise and holding it down and so on and so forth. With this one, you push it down via vise or, you know, by hand, slap your clamp on there, 1 bolt, good to go. So the internal workings, we have the top hat, which has our adjuster, it has our vacuum, and then beneath that we have the top hat, which allows you to run the original spring that comes with it and other springs. Sometimes you stack springs to equal a certain number. Let's say you're trying to get to 22 pound spring, you stack up the according springs, which I believe they have them labeled by color now. So you could do that, and then you put them on the inside, and this makes sure the springs doesn't walk away or get sideways. So then below that we have the spring. Then we have this piece down here, which holds the diaphragm. I'll take this off so you guys can see. This piece is the diaphragm, and it's sandwiched between 2 plates. So you have the bottom plate and the top plate. So let's make sure he has no vacuum leaks. And then this moves up and down, you know, like a subwoofer pretty much. And it allows the wastegate to open, and it has free room to do so without tearing. As you can see on the back, it's braided. So it's not a piece of silicone. It's actually braided silicone. So it's very strong, really resilient. I've never had one of these fail. It's more like the seal wasn't good and needed to be cleaned type of deal. As you can see, the air from, you know, these engines are not the cleanest, even with the filter. So the diaphragm gets dirty. Sometimes it may slip and act funny. People usually replace the whole wastegate. So there's that, and then we have the valve setup here. So this screw holds the bottom plate right here, and then the valve moves up and down. So let's take a look at that. So, as you can see, the valve is now open. Okay, and this is what it looks like fully open. And then this actually has a ring to make sure you get the perfect seal for the base. So when the valve comes down, you have a seating ring exactly like a valve of an engine to make sure that it doesn't leak any boost at all. Okay, so when it's down, put that like that. And boom, just like that, it's down. Not all the way, but let me put it down. So now, as you can see, the valve is fully closed on the seat to make sure no air escapes. So that is internal, external wastegates. And with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed and found these hints and tricks helpful for you. And this pretty much goes across all turbocharged vehicles. The newer cars actually have electronic wastegates, cuts out the middleman, so to speak, but kind of makes it harder to adjust, I guess you could say, because now you'd have to go into programming. But either way, I'm pretty sure you might be able to opt out of that and change the wastegate for a manual one. Who knows? But if you're new here and enjoyed the episode, definitely consider subscribing, hitting that bell icon for updated notifications. And until then, guys, I will see you next episode. And remember, knowledge is power.